Good morning, and welcome to another great edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own Money Truth expert and whisperer, Judy Copenbarger. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I am so excited about this show. This is going to be so fun. How are you doing, Carlos?
I'm doing fantastic. Hey, Tuesday's my favorite day of the week because we get to start it off with just great wisdom, just great momentum, and just it's a beautiful sunny day. I can see it right behind you as well too. So
It is really pretty today.
awesome, folks. Welcome to the show. If you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.today. Make sure you watch previous week episodes because we've been just on a roll. Actually, I should say Judy's been on a roll in the last several weeks. And this week is another great show because we're going to talk about family finances, right? Managing school expenses for kids. And even though school has already started, you always kind of get that mid-year unexpected expenses. I've heard, even parents at the gym talking about cheerleading, how expensive it is, and this and that, and all that other fun stuff. So what do you say we get started?
Let's do it.
All right. So let me ask you a question right out of the gate. Why do school-related expenses often catch families off guard?
Well, especially if you have like your first eighth grader, your first 11th grader, your first preschooler, if you haven't been in the world of all of this stuff, all the opportunities that we have now, how would you know? Right? All the things there are. And so you think there's sports things, there's music things, there's extracurricular science camps. Sometimes you have uniforms. And you were just talking about the guy at the gym, right? Oh,
Right.
my daughter's in cheerleading. We got to have the uniforms. We got to have the pom-poms. We got to have the shoes. Now I got to get the other shoes. And now we have to travel to the competitions. And oh, that's a hotel stay and extra gas. And, all that stuff adds up. So it catches people off guard if you're not aware that's going to happen. So one thing that we did right, actually, this was really fun to prepare for because I was thinking about as our kids were coming up with our 5 kids, we had kind of 2 litters. We had 2 a year apart. We took a break and then we had 3 a year apart. And so we had these little gaps, but we always chose the wisdom. And I think it was one of the things we did well of being around people that had kids one stage ahead of us. So when we were expecting, we got around everybody who had babies. What are they doing? What looks like it might work and what looks like it's really not working?
That's smart.
That's
really smart.
And then when we had babies, we were trying to hang around people that had older kids, toddlers. What's that like? Oh my goodness, here it comes, right? And then when we had preschoolers, we wanted to be around people who were already in school. And so we'd always seek out people a little ahead of us because we were married younger than most of our peers, had kids before most of our peers. So we were kind of like out there on our own. So we had to seek out people that were already doing it, learn from them. So going back to the educational expenses and all the stuff related to that school age kids, you find people who are already doing it and find out what they're doing. What were the biggest surprises to you when your kids started school? Or when they started, junior high or something? What were the biggest? Oh, I didn't know you had to buy a calculator for that class, right? I didn't know you had to buy extra books and go to those extra tutoring sessions, whatever. And sometimes there's expenses related to those activities. So it's just seeing it coming. That's part of planning. It's just like what you try to see around the corners that you wouldn't normally see around. It takes a little bit of foresight, a little bit of planning. And, what's it going to be like a year or 2 or 3 from now? Right? Not just trying to get through the today, but what's it going to be like in the future? And if you don't know and you don't have a way to find out, get around people who are already there. That might help.
Also that brings up another great question. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to have you as an example as a parent, and maybe also some of the parents that you've helped over the years in all of this planning. But based on that, right, what are the biggest school-related costs parents should plan for that we don't really think about?
Well, there's so many kinds of schools. So our kids went to school, I would say we were in school about 20 years over the span of our kids in private school. So the first 8 or 10 years, they had, regular clothes. They didn't have uniforms. After that, they had uniforms. And that was an expense, but it actually turned out to cost less than when they were just buying regular clothes, right? Or when we were just buying regular clothes for them. But it was something you had to have ready, first day of school, you've got to be in those uniforms. And so it's something that you just kind of plan for. So uniforms might be a thing where you are. I would say it's more the extracurricular things. If there are extra books you need to have, it's those things that come up like a field trip. And often there's fundraisers available at school and the parents will get together or the co-op will get together and they say, hey, let's raise money for the kids that don't have it lying around, right? So those things that come up, those camps, those field trips, and if your kids are in any music or sports or theater, cheerleading, these extracurricular things, there's always costs associated, not just with doing the sport or the activity, but getting to it. So there's extra transportation there. Maybe you could pull with other parents, things like that, but you don't want to miss it either. We wanted to be at all their stuff. And when our kids were playing travel ball, and there were a bunch of them, right? We were traveling a lot. I remember thinking, can we just have one Saturday morning this year that we don't have to go anywhere? And there were many years the answer is no. There's not one.
Right.
Because even on the holidays, that's when you have the sports, the soccer competitions, and it's, now it's t-ball time, now it's baseball time, or we got soccer things, whatever. Music, our kids were very involved in music, and there was always touring and performing and traveling, with that, which was great. I wouldn't give it up, but it came with costs, and it came with the need to plan for it, because you don't always see it coming. You might, like, for example, our kids were invited to do music in some really cool places around the world. Well, you don't know what's going to happen until the invitation comes. And then it's like, well, you can't be the kid that doesn't go. You're the oboe player, you're the soloist on the baritone or whatever. So you got to go. And so now here's an expense, and it might be a few hundred, it might be a few thousand for some of these expenses. Well, you didn't necessarily see it coming. So now we've got to do something for that. So I'd say for most people with any, variability in life, and kids come with a lot of that unexpected stuff, right? Just be ready for what's unexpected. And that's as simple as having your emergency fund beefed up a little bit. When we're talking about these education related expenses or activities, that your kids have that are education or peripheral to education, just have a bucket of money or a savings plan toward these expenses. So when it comes, you're ready, and you don't have to whip out a credit card or go into debt or go, ask family to help. So that's just the planning side. And I think when you have more kids, there's going to be more unexpected expenses, more school stuff that comes up. Just be ready and just plan for that. Then you're not surprised.
And it's hard. I mean, it's hard enough. I can imagine 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 6 at a time where, and you can't leave one out, right? Because if you're paying for one to do sports, you can't leave the rest out. So it's always very unexpected, which my next question, I know the answer to this, but maybe walk us through this, right? Is it important, or is it smart to involve our kids in budgeting for school expenses, right? To teach them financial responsibility. I know the answer to this, but walk us through why that's important.
Of course, it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity because it's real for them. But I want to do the field trip, but I want to buy a clarinet, I want to rent a clarinet, for band or whatever. I want to be part of this activity. And you don't want to say no, but you might say, let's work this out together. So what are some things around the house that you can do, some chores that you could pick up to earn some money? I'll match it. Let's say you need $30 a month to rent that, flute or something, to be in the band. I'll cover 15 of it. You've got to earn the other 15. And I'm with you all the way. I'll drive you to the lessons, I'll make sure that you get to everything on time, and I'll help you practice. But you're going to help pay for this activity. So what a great opportunity, not just in budgeting, delayed gratification and all that, but I have to earn it. So when we're adults, we don't just have, every Friday we get paid because it's allowance day. My life isn't like that, right? I got to get out there and make something happen for paycheck. So why not have an opportunity for kids to learn how to budget, how to save for money, or how to save for an activity, how to earn money, how to do all that stuff while they're little. Then they got skin in the game, and it has a much more meaning to them instead of, well, mom and dad always say yes. And if dad says no, I'll go get a second opinion, that kind of thing. So why not take this opportunity for the financial education while we're doing all these other activities at the same time?
Awesome, folks. And if you're just joining us now, welcome to the show. If you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.today. You can find all our social media links on there as well. And today we're discussing family finances, basically managing school expenses for kids. And, I want to keep this momentum going because you got a lot of great advice for some of our parents with this. So let me ask you this. You touched on it a little bit, but what's the best way to estimate, right, or plan for the yearly school costs, right? And that can include technology that can include sports and all of that.
All of that stuff. So you can kind of plan a little bit. I can see band is coming. I can see, in the spring, we're going to be running track or we're going to be playing baseball. I can see that coming. There's going to be, church camp in the summer, science camp in the spring, these kind of things, spring break, whatever it is. So if you take all the big nuggets, all the big rocks that there's going to be 200 for this, 500 for this, 800 for that, whatever it is, take all of that up, add it up, add another 20% to that number for all the other little things that come up. There's your number that you're going to need for the year. Divide it by 12 and every month put a little aside, right? Then you're ready. Now you might get ahead of yourself. There might be a big expense early in the year. It's like, oh, I haven't really accumulated that yet. But if you're doing this regularly and planning per kid, this kind of a bucket, like a slush a slush bucket of all this money that's going to be available, then you're ready. And you don't end up, putting it on a credit card. And then it's kind of a negative. It's like, oh, now I have to look at the bill again when it comes. It's like, that darn kid costs so much. You don't want to ever go there. This is the time to celebrate all the opportunities these guys have. And I get so excited thinking about grandkids coming up. I mean, our kids had so many more opportunities than we did with all of these activities they got to do. And we wanted them to just try them all, and see what really sticks and what skill sets they really want to explore. And I get so excited that all the opportunities are there, but you don't want it to be a negative, like, oh, now they want to do this sport. Now they want to change the instrument to another one. And our kids, every year they learned a new instrument. So they all play many. And that was just something that we like to do at our house. But it came with a price tag, right? So we just planned for it. And it might be something else at your house. Maybe it's golfing. Maybe it's, mission trips, whatever it is. But it's going to take some money and some planning. And why not just be ready? And that's how you do it. Just save a little bit every month. And then you got that bucket ready.
So I'm going to add to this too, because I know parents really never talk about it, right? And let's talk about school lunches, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are the best strategies for cost-effective meal planning? And I know it sounds silly for a lot of folks, but you don't really think about it because you're always on a go, and you're saying, here's $20 for lunch or whatever, and you don't really keep track of what your kids are buying. And if they're just buying junk or candy, then it really defeats the whole purpose of why you're doing it,
Yeah, and I've done many shows on food prepping and keeping the cost down and all of that, involving the kids in the preparation. So let's say Sunday afternoon, you have an hour and a half or 2 hours. The groceries are there. Let's prep. You use the go-tos, the favorites. Maybe it's tacos or it's wraps or it's a charcuterie on the go. Whatever it is. If it's a sandwich kit, where they have everything they need for the chicken salad sandwich and all the stuff in the little lunch box or their cooler, and they actually make it fresh at the table when it's time to eat. They're involved in preparing it. It's not like, oh, here's what my mom threw in the box, right? Make it exciting, make it something that they do. And it's amazing when you start with kids when they're little, it's just what they do. It surprises me still how many adults, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, that don't really know their way around the kitchen. They have no idea what things cost. They don't know how to put things together. Money, kitchen work doesn't have to be timely or draining or expensive. There's so many ways to make it simple. And there's a lot of smart people with videos out there and online stuff everywhere. But just the go-tos that you have, if it's wraps that you like, if it's tacos that you like, whatever your favorites are, maybe it's, stuff in a box that you microwave and you just prep it, make casseroles. One of my sons hates the word casserole. He was smart as a child. I think something happened in a casserole he didn't like, but things that you put together and then you just put a little glob of it, microwave it. And it's like, so good. It's like better sometimes the second or third day, like pizza is always better second day. So things like that, if you just plan, right? I'm a planner. So you plan, you prepare on Sunday afternoon. Everything is set out for the whole week. Just grab it and go. Make it easy. When it's not easy, you're going to end up just whipping out money and spending way more than you need to on something fast. Something because you're hungry, right? You're just going to grab it or drive through on the way home. So if you prepare, you can save so much money in the kitchen.
Casseroles that work for your kid, for me, was soup. Right after I got a little older, like the mention of soup, or I don't go anywhere near that,
Don't
So
make me do that.
yeah, exactly. I could tell you, I mean, I would spend like hours just sitting there with a cup of soup and I wouldn't drink it because I was stubborn and until I finally, that's the only time I could move. But
We all have
let me
that
ask,
thing. Yeah.
right? So let me ask you a side note. Were you a brown bag kid or a lunch pail kid growing up?
Oh, lunch pail.
What was your like your favorite lunch pail? Because right, sometimes we went through different ones until we kind of busted them up or whatever.
Yeah, it was hard to get those metal ones through a whole year. I remember by
Yeah,
the end of the year, they looked pretty bad. My favorite one, it wasn't one of the cartoons, Scooby Doo. It wasn't one of those, Brady Bunch, all that stuff. I had one that was red plaid. It looks like those Christmas quilts, red plaid.
yeah.
And I love that one. And I don't know why. I just have really good memories of walking to school and home. It's about a mile or so with my little lunch pail. What was yours?
Mine, do you remember this Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was
I
like
can
my
hear the music.
favorite.
I hear the
Yeah,
music.
exactly, right? We can build them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like my totally favorite. It just brings back a lot of memories. So I wanted to ask you too, because it's just fond memories of some of that stuff we grew up with for sure.
Yeah. He was James Bond before James Bond was cool. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
So fun.
So
So
I know we're getting closer to the end of this show, but I also wanted to ask you about resources, right? So what are some of the best tools or apps to help track school related expenses, maybe that you've implemented or have you come across?
Well, there's so many budgeting apps for general, budgets or spending plans out there. So those are good. If it's something that you want to do to be prepared, where you're saving a little every month for this slush fund for educational stuff, any of those are going to work. And you're going to find there's probably 1,000 out there and 100 that are good, right? So that's just kind of a personal preference, how you like to do your app. If you want to see how much money's left, to save for this month or how much is left to spend for this month. Some do that. Some show you accumulation, some integrate all of your accounts, so many different apps. So I don't really have one go-to. It just depends on how you want to do it. Do you want to be very specific and write every little nickel down that you spend, or just in general, $5 or $10 here and there? So, and there's different apps, for any of those kind of spectrum. But what was the other part of your question? An app or a
Yeah, an app or some of the best practices, I guess, that you've seen over the years or you've implemented that parents can definitely use for.
Yeah, you know what a lot of people do is they have separate accounts for these different slush funds that I call. So they might have one that's just for like travel or vacations, one that's just for holidays. Teachers do this a lot with the schools first credit union. You can
Mhm.
have all these accounts for free. And so they'll have one for travel, one for Christmas, one for this, one for, all these things. So what if you just had one account that was just for the kids stuff, right? The education and the sports and all the extracurricular things they're going to be doing. And then that's the one that you can see specifically. That's the only thing we're going to use this money for. And then every month, how much you need to put in, once you determine that. And then just keep it earmarked separately from all the rest of your general monthly expenses. It's just so simple.
That's smart. Folks, and you heard me mention we're coming to the tail end of this show, and you guys know what that means. It's our Money Truth Challenge. Man, time flies when you're having fun, right? This is great discussion. Here we are at the end of the show already. What do you got for us this week?
This is fun. Well, if you're my age and you have grandchildren, find someone who is in it. Find someone who's got littles right now or school age kids right now, or maybe even getting ready for college age, and help them. But here's the challenge. The challenge is to determine over a year what you need for all these extracurricular education related or peripheral related expenses. What's that number? Add 20% to what you think it's going to be, because there's going to be other things that come up. Divide it by 12. And then if you get paid twice a month, you can divide it again by half. That's how much every paycheck you need to put away. And just either do that on the back of a napkin, grab a little notepad and figure out what that is. And then am I over that? Am I under that? Is it possible? What do I need to do to make way for that if I'm not there? If you're in this bottleneck of income right now, it's like maybe you have one income, it used to be two, and it's like, oh, it's already tight. Where am I going to find that money, Judy? Right? Then it's time to think creatively about what can give for that to happen. So your kids can have these opportunities, right? So you get to say yes and know the money's there when it's time. There's also, we'll do another show on how to earn the money, how to get the money if you're tight. But I would say the challenge for you is just to determine what that number is, divide it by 12, save for that, and then what's your plan to make that happen? That's your challenge.
All right, folks, you got the challenge. Make sure that you reach out if you get stuck a little bit. Also, I'm always going to remind you that if you have any subjects or anything that you're struggling with that we can talk about on the show that can help others as well, please make sure you reach out to us and let us know. And as a reminder, we're here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. with the replays on Thursdays at 8 p.m. So, Judy, any final words?
Make it a great day. Enjoy the sunshine. If you're in a place that's sunshining right now, get out there and get some fresh air. It's beautiful. I'm so excited.
All right, folks, until next Tuesday, take care and be safe.
Bye-bye.